Hello, and welcome to another edition of Code Remix Weekly. I'm your usual host, Sam, and with me is your other usual host, Tim Tabeek. How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing just fine. I look and sound completely different than normal, as you might notice.
Yeah. How are the Netherlands this time of year?
Hmm. I actually have no idea. I can't even make
Wow.
anything up. I've never been to the Netherlands.
Well, I have been to the Netherlands, and it's beautiful but flat. Uh,
Okay.
in danger of being flooded. It's so flat, like by the ocean.
Oh,
Uh,
gotcha. Okay.
at least in
Yes,
some
of course.
areas.
Of course, I'm not Tim. This is Brian. How's it going, everybody?
What? Okay. Wow. This it's pretty beyond the pale for you to misrepresent yourself that way, Tim. I mean Brian. Uh what would our I mean, we're really coming out the gate strong on a foundation of lies and deception. So where we go from here, it's already it's
Everybody was
looking rough.
completely fooled for at least a whole minute. I don't know.
Okay, fine. So you're Brian.
Yes, yes.
That's good. Tim is as usual at a conference. I think this one is in. I think he's in France right now.
Yeah,
It's
he's
hard
at
to keep up.
Paris. Yeah,
Paris, yeah, Paris is very nice. Have you been to Paris?
I have been to Paris. Lots of good food
Yeah,
and beautiful things.
yeah, for sure. The I've been to Paris twice. Tim often imitated but never duplicated. Yeah, always trying to copy Tim. I don't know. It must be a compulsion because he's so clever and handsome. Everyone just wants to be him. But yeah, I remember going to Paris a couple times, and once was before they had banned kind of cars or most cars from like their downtown
Right.
like core area, and once was after. And I got to say, it was a much nicer city to be a pedestrian in and walk around and see the sights and ride on bikes after, like noticeably less air pollution and such. When was the last time you were in France? Was it before or after they had made that change?
It was after that, yeah, we heard
Uh,
about some people who were really happy about it and some people who were complaining about it as ever, but
as
yeah, it was
ever,
yeah.
yeah, my first impression of Paris, the first time I went, was how aggressive and angry the drivers were because the traffic was
Right,
very densely gridlocked and everybody was mad about it, and
sure.
so there was lots of honking and even some swearing out of windows between taxi drivers and such. So it's nice to know. Hopefully Tim is having a good time. Very, very appropriate. All right, let's get into the announcements for this week, and then we can get on to our main subject. First
Cool.
thing, new open rear release 8.80. That feels kind of auspicious. Maybe we can get a few patch releases in there and get an 8. This would like my birthday is 7/8/88, and it was like if my parents had me in August instead of July, I could have gone 8/8/88, and that would have been fun, but it didn't happen in this timeline. Presumably, that other timeline is better in every way. Um, Mostly bug fixes in this release, although there's a lot of changes into downstream recipe modules as well. So look forward to that. We'll probably get a tweet out about it at some point if we haven't already. We've got a new article on the Moderne blog. I'm just go put a link in the chat here. Uh, about finding every way a Spring controller commits a response too early, about a big kind of CVE that popped up recently that a lot of companies are scrambling to fix. And this is talking about how to use the taint analysis and data flow capabilities in Open Rewrite and the uh, recipe module we've put out specifically for this fix in order to find and remediate it. So if you are using Spring applications, you might well be vulnerable to this. So it'd be a good idea to go read this article and run that recipe and not have all of your applications get turned into Bitcoin mines or what have you by whoever might come across them and notice them being unpatched. So yeah, excellent article to read. And then here we go. This is local modern MCP deterministic tools for coding agents by I'm not sure who this is. Bryan Friedman. I don't know, some
Must be some
strange
new guy.
guy. Yeah, it
Yeah.
must be some new guy. Never heard of him. But I'm sure it's a great article and relevant to today's code remix discussion. So I bet Brian will be telling us all about that shortly. and about how you can integrate the Moderne CLI with your coding agents and make both better and more powerful in the process. So let's see. And on kind of a related theme, we have this upcoming "Don't Blame the Agent, Blame the Context" webinar that you can register to attend. It is a free webinar, and this will show how you can make your agents better and faster. I've certainly had the experience of repeatedly firing up agents in the same repository to tackle different issues, and seeing them always begin with a lot of like some very similar grepping and slurping up of context, and that takes time and tokens. And so, if anything could cut down on that, they could get to work faster and better. And I don't know. Do you have any remarks on this, Brian? It seems like you're a featured speaker.
I'm saving it all for tomorrow. You got to come check out the webinar. So,
All right. Well, yeah. Go sign up for this right now so that you can attend tomorrow. Yeah. Yeah. Excellent sound effect. And learn all about it.
yeah.
Okay. We also have an upcoming Introduction to Open Rewrite training coming up Tuesday, April 28th. This is also a webinar. And let's see. And this will be Tim and Merlin. So just seeing that it's them listed and not me makes me suspect that this is probably in a Europe convenient time zone, 11 a.m. EDT. So if you're in the U.S., this might work okay for you in the East Coast. West Coast, probably not unless you're a real early bird. But if this time doesn't work for you, fret not. There will be more. Okay, so I think that is all of the kind of announcements that we have for the week in terms of new stuff. So, Brian, welcoming into the program. I understand you're now tied for our second most recurring guest.
Yes, I was right on. Thank you. I was right on Kevin's heels, but he was on a couple weeks ago and he beat me. So
yeah. And you'll still have to catch up because it's like I was mentioning earlier. Kevin participates actively enough in the comments most streams that he wins a tie. So you'll have to appear 2 more times to get ahead of Kevin.
Yeah,
no doubt. I know this was what's most important to you, the position in that leaderboard.
This is the reason I'm here. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Very good, very wise. So what brings you here today? What's a trigrep?
What is a trigrep? Well, we announced this a couple months ago, and it's an index. So actually, I was on this very show a few months ago now, I think it was, talking about semantic code search, and we were running some really helpful semantic code search recipes like find types and find deprecated uses and all these different kinds of recipes to do searches. But now with trigrep, there's also capability to do searches without even having to run a recipe, just based off of an index, which they call a trigram index, hence the name trigrep. And so
it's not just running grep 3 times.
Well, I mean, you could run grep 3 times, but you're going to get the same response, and you're just going to take 3 times as long.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, but yeah, so that's the secret behind the name. It's based on the trigram index, which is actually like a technology that's been used in many code search tools. Like I believe GitHub Search uses it. It's sort of like a very effective way to search big swaths or big code bases.
You're
not going to
is aware, like it gives you ways. Is this type aware? Does this take into account what types objects are? How does this help me kind of understand where this sits between a pure text-based search and between running a recipe?
Yes. Perfect. Yeah, that's where I was headed next. So I think I was just saying it's used in other places. In those places, I think it's essentially just text search. It doesn't have that much more information. It does have, I guess there's a little bit about some of the structural searches, which we can talk about that as well. But in the case of trigrep, we actually have even more information because it's built on the lossless semantic tree. So it's actually does have some type awareness. It does not have the full semantic power of a recipe necessarily, but it does have more than your average code search, and certainly
Mm-hmm.
more than your average text search.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. And how how do I do it? How do I do a
How do we do it?
a trigrep search?
How do we do it? Well, there's a couple different ways, and we can show in a demo certainly. Right now, it's available in the Moderne CLI, so you can just run a mod search command. After essentially what happens is after an LST is built, once you have a built LST, you can just run a command to quickly build the search index. And once you've got that, you
Mm-hmm.
can just run mod search. And so we can show some examples of how that looks. And
Mm-hmm.
then the other way is, this is actually turns out to be quite a helpful tool for agents to use because, in case you haven't noticed, if you code with agents a lot, and I'm sure you can speak very much to this, Sam, agents search code a lot. They search code, they grep code, they read code quite frequently to understand what they're trying to do and what they need to do. So it turns out that trigrep is actually quite an effective tool for agents as well to do more efficient searches because they will get sort of the same even a little bit faster certainly than just your average your regular grep, but it's also getting back that type and some of that type information, so it can actually limit the amount of like full scans and full reads that it has to do on top of that.
So faster search, fewer tokens. That sounds pretty good.
Yeah,
Let's see it.
it's a common theme. Okay, cool. So let me start with, we got to build up to the agent. So let's just start with that basic mod search.
Yeah. Let's start with the mod search.
Yeah. Window terminal. Okay, cool. All right, I've got a white terminal for us today so we can see perhaps a little bit better.
How unusual! I feel like there's something unnatural and
It
subtly
is.
wrong about a white terminal, but I'll try not to let that distract me from the content of your presentation.
Yeah, thank you. It does feel a little unnatural, but I've found that the dark terminal is sometimes hard to see on video. So,
For sure.
okay. Yeah. So I've got a set of let's just show you that there's nothing magic happening here, but I've already synced a number of repositories into this directory. So these all have been synced, and LSTs have been built, and we've already indexed with search. So we can easily just do sort of a mod search, and we can just do something basic like let's find anybody who's maybe has written to do comments in various places. This is just like basic string matching. This is not doing anything super complicated.
But it was quite fast.
Text matching, but it was quite fast, and you can see it actually. Unlike if you run grep, you're going to get sort of one line. It'll tell you what line number it's on, but in this case, you're actually getting even more information. You're getting a little bit of additional context around around what is the result, as well as where the file is and
The file line numbers. Yeah, this is nice for human readability or for agent readability,
exactly.
as you get
That's
to
right.
see a little bit of context to decide if that individual result is relevant or not.
Absolutely. And of course, I'm going to copy a regex because I don't want to fumble it. But we can also do things like this, like if we want to do find whatever by methods, they can do sort of a regex search, which will show us like find specialty by ID, find pet type by ID, find visit by ID.
Mm-hmm.
So basic regex searches are also possible. Now this is sort of the cooler example. We were talking about how it has type search, type awareness, right? So we can use this SYM, which is of course stands for symbol, and say, hey, show me all of the actual places that the clinic service type shows up as a symbol. And so it's actually you can see it's actually showing you the functions that also return that type. And it's got anything that's related to that symbol is all here. So that's
You should know what the query for that was again. Just like press up in your terminal. I just want to see what.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So sim : and the type name. All right, that's pretty handy.
Yeah, and you can also do things like
Wait, why is it highlighting these void functions? Where
I
is clinic service
believe
related to those?
I believe they return. I believe they are.
Well, they're type voids. They don't return
Oh
anything. Is there
yeah, you're
something
right. You're right.
inside them that has a clinic service in it?
That's a great question.
Oh, it's just because these are part of class
Oh, the
clinic
clinic service
service
class. There
tests.
you go. Yep.
So
Yep.
these guys exercise the clinic service in some way.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, that's right. The other thing you can do is things like I like this one a lot as well. You can do things like extends, right? So I think this one will work. Nope. Person is perhaps a better one. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, so any types that extend person, you're actually exposing those as well. So that's coming from that type information as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing I'll show you here before we get into the agent piece is there's the concept of structural search. So there's a syntax like I think it's called Comby. I don't know how to pronounce it. Comby.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do sort of complicated structural searches. So it's not so much a semantic search because it doesn't necessarily know what the code means, but it does allow you to find certain things. Like, for example, if you wanted to find any empty catch blocks, this is how it would look. So you've got, you're telling it, hey, it's a structural search. We want to find a catch, and we want to find something, and this is where
there's going to be a
sort
type
of
there,
more
and a variable name, and a block.
Exactly. So even more specific than a regex, which would just say like, hey, anything in between the parens. Here we can actually, where are there actual specific, empty catch blocks, and you can do other fun complicated things like, find empty array list collections. So anyway, so the structural search is really powerful. As you can see, that you can sort of really get granular as far as what you want to discover. Yeah,
it's very cool. And so you're saying, so we can wire this up to a coding agent so that it can do these fast searches and such. How do we do that?
Yep. I got one more thing to show you before we get to that.
Please.
So we were talking about semantic search earlier, and one of the nice things about this is, if you do need to get more accurate, you need to get sort of specific. This is, this has the potential, even though it knows a lot about types, more about types than a regular text search. It does have the potential to give you some false positives, certain things that maybe, go beyond actual the level of detail that the recipe can follow. Mm-hmm. So you can do certain things where you start with a trigrep search and sort of limit the scope. Let's say you have like 400 repositories or something instead of the 8 that I have here or whatever it is.
Right, because all the commands you're showing us can be run over one repository or many.
Right, and this is running over many, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Well, I guess this even says 5 repositories. So, but if you have 500 repositories, right. And you want to run a semantic code search recipe, it's going to could take some time and might find nothing in most of the repositories. So if you wanted to say start with a trigrep search, so like if we wanted to find any place where REST controller shows up, you can start with that search, and you're going to see it didn't show up in this repository, but it did show up in this repository, and looks like there's plenty of occurrences in here. And also up in here. So now what we can do is we can say, okay, now we need to get even more specific. We need to find anything where there's a REST controller annotation, and I need this to be super accurate. So I'm just going to run the find annotations recipe.
And I see you're scoping it with this -- last search.
Right. So this last search, instead of like last recipe run, you can say, hey, I'm going to do this against the last search. And what will happen is it will run the recipe, but you'll see it's skipping the repositories that didn't actually have any results.
Yeah.
Yep. And so this is the recipe output here for this one and for this recipe here, but here it skipped it. No search results were found. So it didn't even run waste cycles on that. So that's pretty neat use
That's
case.
pretty convenient. Getting even, a recipe that finds no results is still, iterating over all the files in some
Right.
capacity. So if you can skip that, then yeah, you can make all of your recipe runs that much faster. That's great.
Yeah. So, all right, now we can get to the agent piece. Um, so I think I can't remember if we've talked about. Have you talked about you've talked about our agent tools and sort of
Yeah,
installing.
we've talked about agent tools before, but we might as well kind of take it from the top.
Yep. Okay.
Be
So
thorough.
yeah, you bet. So with we've got this config agent tools command
Hmm.
um, that lets you install or uninstall various agent tools. So if we just do a full install, it's going to kind of investigate and see what agents I've got and install those. And the important thing here is that we're going to that I'm going to show off and use is this MCP server piece,
Hmm.
because this basically means every time we launch an agent session, it'll have access to a set of tools that give it access to Moderne, and one of those tools is basically a trigrep search. So if we go here, we get some example queries so we actually get something back. Well, we can just start with like, where does person show up? So this is like very explicitly asking for a search instead of asking for something more general where it might actually use a search.
It also kind of sounds like a small child asking a confused question. Where does person show up?
Yeah, absolutely. It's taking its time to think about this one.
It's a difficult question. Where does person
Yeah,
show up?
got to
I mean,
find all the places.
person potentially shows up lots of places. I mean, there's billions of them, so it's
Oh, you know what? Actually, this isn't even the pet clinic anymore. So it might not even find person at all in this particular repository.
it might not. Yeah,
Yeah,
but yeah, does the Netflix Eureka repository have any person? I
yeah,
guess we'll find out.
probably not. Forgot which context I was in for a sec.
It's so easy to do with all of these IDE windows and terminals floating
Yeah.
around. Um, I have been finding more success recently. Oh,
Oh,
TriGraph
it's a
MCP tools
private.
haven't registered yet. What do I have to do to
Cool.
register them?
Cool. It's connected. Okay. Well, let's try it in a different repository.
Yeah, go to Pet Clinic and do the
Yeah.
/MCP. And do you need to run something on the CLI to like start the MCP server, or that should start automatically on
It
demand, right?
should start automatically. Yeah. Yeah. This was, definitely working when I tested it earlier, but this is the nature of
Naturally.
live demos. That's how things go. Oh, I thought you could do that, but I guess I have to type it.
So while you take a look at that, and this we got a question in the comments from someone who says, "I'm new to AI agent building. Wanted to know what kind of projects or skills does a team like you look for when hiring someone as a dev?" Um, so one thing I want to be clear about is that we are not a company that creates large language models or the agents
Yeah.
themselves. What we are focused on
There we go.
is providing tools that agents and the humans who use agents can use to author software better. So if your interest is in like working on something like Claude itself, that's not a question I can really answer for you. Although knowing something about linear algebra would probably help if you want to really get into the guts
Sure.
of regressions and what have you. Now, as for working on agent tools, the question is kind of, well, anything that is useful to an agent. Anything that an agent does slowly or poorly right now, that you can create a tool that does it faster or more efficiently, that agent can be that could be described to that agent how to use, could be a good choice for that. Uh, so hopefully that helps out.
Yeah.
All right.
Good question.
So did we find where a person shows up?
It did find it, yeah, and it actually you can see it called Moderne. It called the tool, the trigrep tool.
All right. Can we do a control O to expand? I'm curious to see
Yeah.
what's inside that. Okay, so let's put together a couple trigrep queries for a person in Java source files, and it was able to configure the output mode to list files with matches, and then it repeated that with output mode content. That's kind of interesting. I wonder what the difference is.
Oh,
Why?
interesting.
Yeah, cool.
If we, yeah, I'm not sure what the output mode. All right, I'm just looking at the content shows matching lines with optional context. Files with matches shows only file paths. There's your difference.
I see. Yeah, I might have expected that an AI agent might skip straight to content, as that gives it a little bit more to go off of. But
Yeah.
I mean, files with matches, yeah, and files with matches would I guess let you know if you wanted the content, right? Because if you got a billion matches, like if this appeared in a ton of files, you might not want the content from all of them. Just to
So you start
keep
with
the
just narrow it
context a
down,
little.
basically. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that first query was probably so I could figure out if it needed to narrow it down or not.
Yeah. Yeah. So also, we don't have to be as explicit as this. We could say like, what will change if I need to add a field to person? Maybe it'll actually figure out what I meant by parens there too.
I think it'll figure out what you meant by parens. It's pretty good at typos,
Yeah, it
particularly
is pretty
when
good
the
typos.
the word you've intentionally used is or that you mistyped is already kind of like in its context.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, definitely. So you can see it's calling Moderne quite a bit. It's doing some queries. And
Looking for
what's great,
person, not parens.
yeah, see, it figured it out. And you can see like that's pretty quick. It doesn't have to go read. We'll do I've got a sort of a comparison we can go take a look at too, but it doesn't have to sort of read a bunch of files. It really only read one file and then used the tool to kind of figure out the rest. So, yeah, so it's pretty powerful. I think one of the things you said earlier, which is very true, is fewer tokens.
Right.
Certainly, we can see how that works. And I was on a couple weeks ago here talking about pre-think with Kevin when you guys were traveling, and we sort of did a side-by-side demo where we said, okay, let's try it with pre-think, try it without pre-think, and kind of look at the token count. So I thought it might be fun to try to do that again and only use trigrep as the.
Bryan, I would love to see that.
Okay, let's do it, and let's see if. This is on the Eureka repository, so let's see if this works. I'm going to ask, if I modify instance info class, what other classes and services would be affected? And this side does not have trigrep, so it's going to go do a whole bunch of searches and stuff. Let's see if this side does have trigrep. It should. So you can see it's searching here. This is basically using grep. I'm probably having to restart this because I must have. Oh, no, there we go. It's looking for MCP at least. So yeah, look at this. This is a grep command. It's doing, grep, and then it's probably gonna end up reading a bunch of files after it finds those files as well.
Yeah, I would assume so. And it seems like on our right side, maybe it we got slowed down by it deciding that it needed to enumerate the MCP servers that were available to it.
Yeah, let me just start the whole thing again. I try to make this easy on myself, but you get to watch me type a lot. Okay, let's try this again.
And did we do anything to make sure that it was aware of the MCP servers in this session? I see it calling Moderne, so I guess it decided it didn't need to enumerate its MCP resources this time.
Yeah, I think I just had a stale session. There's what ended up happening. So you can see this took 2 minutes and 10 seconds and came back with a whole bunch of suggestions. This took 41 seconds. So right away, you can see that the time, of course, was quite a bit less. But we can also go and take a look at how many tokens it used up. So this is the one without try grep. This is the same tool I used last on the last session to sort of count tokens from all of the log files.
Okay, so total tokens 1.6 million. What do we have on this other side?
Quite considerably.
Oh, wow.
Fewer. Yeah.
250,000. You know, I was I was seeing it people saying online that bilingual programmers who know Chinese had been starting to prompt Claude and their agents in Mandarin instead, as they were finding that
Really?
it was, yeah, they were just finding that they could get similar results with like some, you know, it wasn't super precisely measured, but like let's say 30% fewer tokens, which could be real, you know, if you're paying for API access and not one of these subscriptions, could really matter how many tokens you're using. But this is much more dramatic than that.
It's true. Is that just because there's just fewer characters in Mandarin, or is it what's the?
I mean, I can only speculate, but if I were to speculate, then it might be that an individual Mandarin character is more information dense than a single English word.
That's
so that you could, if you could express more stuff in fewer characters, that would translate to lower token usage. So that is my speculation, which is as unadulterated by any true knowledge of Mandarin or the inner workings of these LLM systems. But that feels plausible. And in this day and age, isn't that the same as being true?
100%. And it actually makes me think about I've got two young kids. I've got a 14-year-old and an 11-year-old, and they it seems like that generation
almost got the ages wrong there. That was good. Your daughters almost, or sons, or whoever they are, almost learned that you didn't love them or remember their ages.
Well, I just it just seems like time goes by so fast. That's why I can never keep track. But it seems like that younger generation is all about fitting as much information into as few characters as possible. It seems like they cannot text in complete sentences or even in complete words. So maybe they're perfectly
maybe they're onto something.
Be efficient with agents. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, anyway, this is pretty dramatic difference.
And this is And which repository is this in? Was this in Pet Clinic?
This is Eureka. This was the Eureka.
Eureka. Yeah. Okay, that's a slightly larger project. But yeah, I would fully expect that this the benefit here would only get more dramatic as the size of the repository increased.
It does,
right?
Sure.
Like, because you just have to search through more and more files to try and find what you're looking for. And lots of people have had the experience of being like, our code base is really big and interconnected. AI agents kind of struggle to work with it.
Right.
And tools like this that mean that you don't have to treat it like a blob of text, but can, present a little bit more information on the actual structure to the agent helps to get better results more efficiently.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just that's a really dramatic difference in token cost. Yeah, it's like
Definitely.
what? That's like one that's like 1/6
And I know
the
there's,
token usage.
there's different tokens are, sort of worth different amounts. So it's
Sure.
obviously quite a bit. You can see it's having to read the cache quite a bit more in particular, but everything is increased. And it's interesting. This example didn't launch a sub agent, but oftentimes, like you mentioned, depending on the size of the repository, it will kick off a sub agent and go explore and do a whole bunch more reads even than this example did. Um, so we've seen that happen quite a bit as well.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
What do you have any other cool demos to show us?
I mean, that was sort of the bulk of it. I wanted to lead up to this, dramatic comparison. So
Yeah, and it is good. It is very dramatic. I just wanted to
yeah,
make sure that if you had anything else that we're taking
no,
the
that's
taking the time to give it its due. Uh, but yeah, this is really cool. I think there is a lot of potential here to make these agents better at the things that they are bad
yep,
at. Right? Agents are they're so good at fuzzy tasks, at stochastic tasks, at tasks where you want to guess and check a bunch of times, or you want to try a bunch of different things and keep what works. But where precision or correctness are really important. You might want something deterministic, but deterministic tools
yep,
lack the
exactly.
flexibility and the fuzziness of the stochastic tools. So if you can complement the stochastic tools with deterministic tools that address their weaknesses, then you can and use the agents to for the gaps where you don't have a deterministic tool. Then you can get the best of both worlds a lot of the time, and I think that's what we're really looking to do. Get the
That's
get the
exactly right.
correctness, yeah, get the correctness, get the precision, get the comprehensiveness of something deterministic, and make all of that rigor, precision, and speed available to the agents.
That's right. And there's a vocabulary lesson in there too, I think, Sam, because those are some good words.
Stochastic's a good word, right? That just
Stochastic,
means
yeah, definitely.
that's just a fancy way of saying kind of random.
Yeah, that's a good one. But yeah, no, that's exactly it. There's sort of this spectrum of speed versus accuracy, and we've talked about before how the recipes are going to get you the uh,
Mhm.
most accurate results. But this sort of helps bridge the gap for the agents and for humans too. I mean, I'm sure you've done your fair
Absolutely.
share of searching code.
Oh
Uh,
yeah. Yeah, I remember some quite bad code search tools that were still a godsend, like still so much better than nothing
yeah,
years ago, and these are all so much better than that. Um, Sorry, I'm still stuck on the word stochastic. Are you a gambling man, Brian? Do you like to go to Vegas, hit the craps, do a little
I
blackjack?
mean, I will play blackjack from time to time. I'm more of a poker person. I like to play
Okay.
the person, not the house so much.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
yeah, for sure,
yeah,
for sure. Well, the
yeah,
person doesn't necessarily have a baked-in advantage like the house does.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
but what I was going to say is, if you ever needed to creatively account for your gambling losses, you would say it's not gambling. It was stochastic finance.
Stochastic, stochastic finance.
Yeah.
That's good. That's a good one. I like that. Yeah, many a Vegas trip have ended with stochastic finance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. Well, good stuff, Brian. You want to take a second to tell the people about the class tomorrow? I mean, it sounds like this should be pretty thematically aligned with what you were
Yeah,
discussing
definitely.
today, but in more depth, covering more things. Like, why should the people who are watching you here today go and rush and sign up for that to see you again tomorrow?
Well, so tomorrow we're talking specifically about pre-think, which has some of the same
Mhm.
principles here. Right? You'll see similar dramatic difference between using it and
Complimentary.
not. Yeah, but but yes, I mean, definitely complementary. You could see, even if you have pre-think, you're still going to have to search the code. So maybe the agent will use pre-think to find, which files have certain characteristics, and then use trigraph to search those files, and then use use its native tools to go from there. So yeah, so tomorrow we're going to be talking specifically about pre-think, but we'll take a look sort of at some similar use cases as this as well.
Right on. Yeah, so complementary. You could benefit from both and for similar reasons. So if you liked what you
Right.
saw about TriGrep today, go check out the stuff on Prethink tomorrow, or go watch the back episode of Code Remix on
Right.
YouTube where we talked about Prethink then. Or if you're just like really lazy but good at just showing up every Wednesday, I'm sure we'll talk about Prethink and these related technologies again
Oh,
because
you will for sure.
we're continuing to
There's
iterate on.
already been additions to pre-think since I was on this, since Kevin and I talked about it,
Yeah.
particularly around some serious code quality metrics that pre-think gathers.
Yeah. I actually looked at some of those last week on the stream, and I didn't have Tim or any other guest here. I ran Prethink on some of our repositories and looked through
Yeah,
specifically the code quality metrics it came up with,
that's
which
right.
I found very interesting. You could refer to last week's episode for all the details. But one thing that was interesting was some of the metrics pointed to classes that were like very much designed to be that way. Um, like both on like the high end and the low end of like coupling or coverage,
Yeah,
some of these metrics. And and yeah, so that was interesting for me seeing that the metrics were like, well, in a lot of cases this would be bad design, but like in one I was looking at in particular, it's like, well, that's very much exactly how the visitor pattern is like designed to be implemented.
right. Yeah,
Um, and so there are places where it is intentional as
yeah.
well. So it's not
Use
something
case
that you
specific. Yeah,
yeah, use case specific, design specific,
yeah,
but it's the kind of thing where you would definitely kind of learn about your code base by looking at where these different classes show up on these code quality metrics, and yeah, it's an interesting subject to delve into. But I think for this week we'll just about call it here. Thanks for coming on, Brian.
yeah. You bet.
It's been a pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having me. Yep. See you next time.
All right. See you all next time. Bye.